shooting happened in the early hours of Sunday while the club was packed with around 320 people. Armed with an assault rifle and a handgun, the attacker barricaded himself inside, taking hostages. The situation lasted for 3 hours before SWAT teams moved in and killed him. Well, the gunman, Omar Mateen, was a 29-year-old US citizen of Afghan descent. He worked as a security guard and had a Florida firearms license. His attack was apparently inspired by ISIL, but the FBI says there's no evidence to suggest he had any direct link with the terror group. However, Mateen had been on the FBI's radar since 2013.
The FBI first became aware of Mateen in 2013 when he made inflammatory comments to co-workers alleging possible terrorist ties. The FBI thoroughly investigated the matter, including interviews of witnesses, physical surveillance, and records checks. In the course of the investigation, Mateen was interviewed twice. Ultimately, we were unable to verify the substance of his comments, and the investigation was closed. In 2014, Mateen again came to the attention of the FBI because of possible ties to Monar Abu Salah, an American suicide bomber. The FBI conducted an investigation, including an interview with Mateen. We determined that contact was minimal and did not constitute a substantive relationship or a threat at that time.
Earlier, we spoke with a former FBI agent who thinks that the agency is actually overwhelmed by the amount of information they have on potential suspects.
I think the FBI is in a mission impossible situation where they literally have thousands of people due to the mass collection of data that meet this same threshold. When you're playing defense, as the FBI is, there really isn't that much you can do. You can't actually prevent terrorism when there are thousands of people that all are in the same situation, have the same proclivities, etc. What we need to do as a country is look at what the United States is doing abroad. They need to work to reduce terrorism as a whole and reduce these things. I honestly think that people should really examine the post 9/11 actions and say, oh my goodness, you promised you would protect us, and now look what's happening. We're starting to get terrorism here in the United States more and more and more. And then we should go back and say, let's stop doing what is increasing terrorism.
Sunday morning. And it is the second time in less than a year that the US has been hit by a deadly shooting where the assailants are proven to be Islamist sympathisers. Meanwhile, there has been a global outpouring of grief, solidarity and sympathy for the victims of the Orlando killings. On social networks, people are posting ribbons and rainbow flags and the hashtags "We Stand With Orlando" and "We Are Orlando." Across the US and around the world, tributes are being held for those who lost their lives in the tragedy. Well, one of
It's hard for me to talk. I'm still shaking. I've been dealing with the situation this last night in the bathroom for 3 hours practically with this gun. Every time I heard a shot, I was hoping it wasn't taken away. A friend of mine. And someone, came in and disturbed it. And I was very surprised. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was fireworks. People thought it was the music with the popping sounds, but it became serious. And I had to play dead to survive in there.
Orlando police have started to release the names of some of the victims. 15 people have been identified so far, and what makes things more tragic is that most of them were actually young. Of those identified, a lot of them were under the age of 25. As you can imagine, locals devastated by events. With more now from the scene, here's Marina Portnoy.
The atmosphere is very somber. Residents that I've been speaking with are still in a state of shock, utter disbelief that such violence and hatred can unfold in their city. Orlando is internationally known for Walt Disney World, a place where dreams are made, and yet now it is home to the largest, the worst U.S. shooting massacre in history. Now, approximately 400 meters right behind me, authorities are combing the scene because that is where the shooting unfolded at the Pulse nightclub at 2 a.m. On Sunday.
He was talking to me, and I made him get off the phone. He said he didn't want to look at the man because he might look and get shot. So I told him to hang up and text. So we was asking him, to have me asking him questions.
Yeah.
Is everybody all right? He said no, people are hurt. And then he said he has us and he's going to kill us. And that was it.
The person I was with was shot in the back. I had to take my bandana off and tie it up, put it in the bullet hole that was in his back so that he wasn't bleeding, because if he was bleeding so bad his whole pant leg was red.
You didn't die in vain, but I love you. You will always be remembered. Rest in peace.
Now, we know that security has been tightened throughout several cities in the U.S., including Orlando, and there's just an active police presence pretty much anywhere you go. But we did get to speak with many people who are familiar with the venue of the gay nightclub. They have friends and family who frequent the venue. They were in utter shock about what has happened.
Well, I was just talking to my wife about it, and I told her, what are we supposed to do now? We can't even go to our own safe zone that we thought it was safe zone. These clubs, we would go and just kind of sit there and listen to music and just kind of be around everybody that was just like us, and nobody was going to stare at us weird or anything like that, or we weren't going to make anybody uncomfortable, and for that, it's just, just shocking.
This is happening right now is like breaking my heart, I mean, it shouldn't happen, but I mean, I just don't know what to say much, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it got me like in shock. Like, how can this happen in Orlando,
My nephew was there yesterday. He left 10 minutes before it happened. We are happy that he made it, nothing happened to him, but we are sad also for the ones who have lost their lives. And we're angry because Orlando is really a nice area.
Now, echoing what a lot of those people said, while they are shocked and maybe a bit broken, there is a really strong sense of solidarity that is being shown out here on the streets of Orlando. People walking with signs showing their support for the victims and victims' families. And also there's been a GoFundMe page that was created in the aftermath of the horrific shooting. And from what is being reported, nearly $1 million has been raised in less than 8 hours for the victims and victims' families. Hopefully there will be more information coming out in the days to come, and we will keep our viewers updated as soon as we know more information about what is unfolding here on the streets of Orlando.
That was Marina Port.
Well, to America now, which is coming to terms today with its worst ever mass shooting. In the early hours of Sunday morning, a gunman walked into the Pulse nightclub in Orlando and opened fire on young men and women, killing 50 and wounding 53.
Survivors have described a scene of mayhem as details began to emerge about the killer. Omar Mateen was known to the FBI and made a 911 call swearing allegiance to Islamic State before the attack. Sky's US correspondent Cordelia Lynch reports.
The bodies of the dead are removed from Pulse nightclub in Orlando. It is the worst terror attack on US soil since 9/11.
Oh my God, they're all shooting back and forth.
A massacre survivors are struggling to describe.
There was people outside. I couldn't even imagine to see what the mayhem was on the inside, to be honest. I just know that it was bad, the way that people were coming out. The ones that were close to me that were coming out. Like, I'm happy that I got away and like harmed and stuff, but at the same time I feel bad. Because there's so many people. It was really packed. There's so many people.
You're sitting there having a great time at a club, and then you hear what sounds like fireworks or balloons popping, and you assume it's part of the show. And then when you hear people start screaming and the sound doesn't stop and people start falling, you realize it's not a show anymore. And at that point, I realized I needed to get out.
This is where the injured are recovering. Earlier in the day, families gathered at a nearby hotel were told who had made it to hospital.
Many families are still desperately waiting for news. Inside, some are quietly huddled, some in prayer. And those that have been able to speak to their loved ones have heard chilling details.
Angel Colon's son described seeing the gunman drinking at the bar before the attack. Shortly after, he was among those targeted.
He got shot. He threw himself at the floor. Then he got shot again when the gunman came over, and he said kind of lifted up his eyes a little and just lay back down. That's when he noticed that the girl he was holding hands with all of a sudden let his hands go. But he noticed she got shot and she didn't make it.
About 130 miles away, the home of the gunman, 29-year-old Omar Mateen in Port St. Lucie. The FBI interviewed him twice in 2013 and again in 2014, but he was taken off the terror list and just a few days ago was able to purchase 2 guns.
We do not have a second suspect that we are actively looking for. We don't know of any credible or singular threats that are facing the Orlando area or nationally. We are providing physical presence for the hospitals and the victim assistance centers to make sure everyone remains safe and secure.
His ex-wife has described him as a violent man.
He was very short-tempered, and he would often get into fights and arguments with his parents, but because I guess I was the only one in his life, most of the violence was towards me at that time.
Close to the club where tragedy struck, thousands queued for hours in searing heat to donate blood.
Over here, I was kind of crying in the car because it's personal. It's an attack on my community, which is just I'm in awestruck, and it's so debilitating, honestly.
This was mass murder in a place many considered a sanctuary. At Joy Metropolitan Church, they defiantly responded in song. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Orlando, Florida.